Welcome to Roghnu's Power BI training. And in this video, we are going to be walking through the query editor, which is what you see here. And this is essentially the same thing as Power Query in Excel, if you're familiar with that. If not, this video will get you very familiar with it. Obviously, this video is not going to make you an expert in data transformations in the query editor, but it should get you really comfortable working in this environment. Now, really quick, how do you get to this view here? Let me minimize this. And so you open up the PBIX file, you see your report page here. How do you get to the query editor? All you have to do is go to transform data and click transform data, or you don't have to do the drop down. You can just click this icon here and that's going to open it up for you. All right, so here we have the query editor. And in this video, I'm going to start from the left right here, go up to the top, and then work our way down here on the right side, explaining what all of this is. So on the left side here, we have the tables. This is also referred to as the data model, or at least an aspect of the data model, the tables in your data. And you see here, I have these grouped by dim tables and fact tables, and then other queries. By default, you're not going to have these folders. You can create those and group tables as needed. That grouping doesn't do anything to the tables or the data model. It's purely for organization, which is helpful, especially if you have a lot of tables. So if you wanted to create a different group, you could just right click on a table that you wanted in that group and go to where's that here? Move to group, so you can move to another group, or new group. All right, I'm not going to create a group, but you could just we'll click new group. You name the group, and then click OK, and that table will get added to it. If there's an existing group you want a table in, you don't have to do the right click move to. You can just hold and drag it to a different grouping. So whatever you want to do there. So what are dim tables? Dim stands for dimension. So dimension tables are tables that are typically that have data that's typically incorporated in axes of visuals or in slicers. So basically any of your categories, you think of location or vendor or customer, as you see here, we have vendor, customer, location, and so forth. So these are the dimensions of the data, the dimensions that slice the data or group the data. And then fact tables are transactions, right? They're typically numerical in nature. You're going to have a lot of numerical columns in fact tables. All right, so this is a typical way of grouping tables in a data model. You have your dim tables and you have your fact tables. All right, now here, I have these tables in here already. Obviously, they didn't just exist there already. How did I get them in here? So how do you add new tables, right? So I can go to new source, and we're going to there's a ton of different options. I'll click more just so you can see all the different connections that exist that makes it easy to connect to data on various platforms. All right, so I'll just scroll through here a little bit so you can see there is a lot. And you can search that way, or you can just come in here and type what you're looking for. So I'll do SQL. Here we have SQL Server Database. I'm going to click on that and connect. All right, so it's asking for the server name and then the database name, which is optional. Now, my server name and database name are not going to be the same as yours. All right, and then you can import the table, or you can direct query. Direct query is, well, pretty much like it sounds. You're not importing the data into memory. You have a direct connection to the data. A live connection to the data. You typically want to reserve direct queries for really large tables. If you're connecting to a really large table and you don't want that table really slowing down the performance of the file and greatly enlarging the memory or the file size, then direct query is typically the way you want to go. Otherwise, just do import. Import is your default import mode is ideal. And then you also have advanced options here where if you want, you can actually input a SQL statement here to bring in the data that you want. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to click OK. And a window is going to open up with a list of tables and views in the database. And then whatever you want to bring in. So this icon means a view. And if I scroll down here, this icon means a table. So whatever you want to bring in, you can select a single table, you can select multiple tables, whatever you want to bring in. And then all you have to do is click OK. I'll bring a new one in just for demonstration. We'll click OK. And we'll see that table gets added here. Now you can change the name of the table if you want just by going over here. And I'll just say new table. All right, and so here we have our new table. And then here's all the data. We have a data view of the table. We can scroll through here, see all the columns, and do our transformations as needed, which is a good segue into the next portion of this video, which is data transformations. However, before I go there, so not quite a segue, you see this down here, customer DB. Let me expand this out. It's got a DB name there. So customer DB, this is a parameter. I'm going to click on that. So here we have the parameter input, Roghnu Skyline DB. It's our test environment, test database. Now I can manage the parameter. So rather than looking at parameters from the perspective of an existing parameter, let me show you how to create a parameter. Again, the idea though behind a parameter is to, well, make a data. I mean, there's a number of ways really you could use a parameter. The way that this parameter is being used is when we save our file as a template and our clients open that template, they will get prompted to input their database name. So this parameter here is what prompts them to input their database name, and this parameter is incorporated in the various table queries. So let me cancel this really quick. Dim location, if I click on this table here and I go to advanced editor, here I'm seeing, we'll just say basically the M code here that processes and brings this data in. And as you can see, we are using the parameter customer DB. So this is you can think of it as kind of a placeholder, right? So whatever value gets input in that parameter, that value will show up here. So customer DB is a parameter. Whatever database name gets put in customer DB, that database name gets passed into that place there. And we have that for all of the tables here. So if I show another one, here we have customer DB. Again, so that's getting passed in there. So that means whenever you open the template, you input your database name, that database name gets plugged into all of these queries here and connects to your database and brings those tables in from that database. So that's a really valuable use of parameters. But I mean, you can think of other ways that parameters can be used. Whatever you can think of, you can create a parameter for, and then input that parameter in the code wherever it is needed. And so it just creates this dynamic ability to process your data, bring in your data, filter your data, whatever it might be. So if I want to create a new parameter, go to Manage Parameters, and we'll do New Parameter. And so you have your parameter name. You can put a description if you want. You can make this required or not. You choose your data type. Any allows them to, and it could be any data type, or you can choose a specific data type here. And then suggested value. You can have a list of values that you can input. So you can input an actual list of values that they can choose from, or the list of values can be generated from an existing query. All right, and then you can input a current value. So basically, what's the default value? All right, and then you would just click OK to create that parameter, and then incorporate that parameter in the queries. All right, so back to our segue now of data transformation. So if we navigate our way back up to the top here, we see the ribbon here, the home ribbon. We have a lot going on here. I can click transform. We got a lot going on here. Add columns, a lot here. So clearly you can see there's a lot you can do in the query editor. All right, I'm obviously not going to cover every single thing you can do, but I do intend to cover some of the more common features, data transformations in the query editor, again, to get you comfortable and working in the query editor. So let's start with the home tab here. Let's see. So you already saw, right, we connected to a new table. So you have your data sources you can connect to. You have your recent sources, enter data. Let me click enter data. Not showing up. Well, there we go. Okay. So maybe there's a manual table that you want to create. Maybe you have a simple data table you want to incorporate in your data model that doesn't exist in your data source. Obviously, ideally, you would incorporate that table in your data source. But the capability is here to allow you to input manual data if you choose. So you create an index column, say 1, 2, 3. Click this plus sign to create another column. And we'll just, this is some category. We have A, B, C. All right, and then you can name your table. We'll just call this a manual table and click OK. All right, we see that table gets added to our tables here. So now we have this table, which really doesn't make sense, but you can imagine you can input anything that would make sense. You could think of maybe currency, right? Currency codes, whatever it is you want to incorporate that table in your data model, you can do that this way. Let's see, we also have, you can choose columns. So let's do PO document entry here. So if I scroll over here, you see there's a lot of columns, right? And I'm trying to find a particular column. Where is that column? I can't find it, right? So an easy way to find a column you're looking for in a table, just go to choose columns, go to column, and then you can just type it in. Say when, and here I see when created, when modified, when due. So when created, double click on that, and it's gonna take me to when created, right here, when created. All right, and then we could choose columns. Again, you can choose columns. All right, and then so what this does is you can deselect all and just choose the columns that you want to keep, right? Say I do this and I click OK. Now all I'm left with are those columns that I selected. And we'll get to this point over here, but you see that step was added, right? Removed other columns. So all the data transformations you do get stored over here in applied steps. And that's really valuable, really important. And we'll look at that more fully here shortly. So let's say I don't want to do that. I want all those columns back. How do I do that? How do I undo it? Well, as you can see here, there's an X mark. So I can just click that and that'll delete that step. So now I have all of these columns back as they were. And then here we have the kind of other side of it. You can do remove columns. Remove columns. Well, I didn't have anything selected. So let's say I selected this and remove column. So that gets removed. All right. I'll just click that to delete that step. Also, another way you can do that is you can just right click on a column and click remove. Or let's say you only want these 3 columns. So I can click on one, hold shift, click on this one, and it highlights all 3. And I can right click, remove other columns. So it's going to remove all the other columns, only keep the ones that I had highlighted. And again, I can delete that to undo that step. So this is one of the major data transformations that you're going to utilize in the query editor, where you bring in a table or a view, and maybe it has a lot of columns that you really don't need existing in your data model. Those columns aren't going to be used, and so why keep them in there to take up space, right? It's just going to increase the file size, and you don't want that. You want good performance. So remove unnecessary columns. That's a very valuable step there. All right, and you'll notice too, so if I right click on a column here, I have a lot of options here, and you see that these are pretty much the same that I have up here, right? That's one approach you can take, as well as you can right click if you want to perform a specific data transformation on a particular column. You can just right click that column, and you have various options here. You can change the data type. You could do some kind of transformation. We'll play around here just so you can see. So lowercase, so you see right now it's purchase order here, capital P, capital O. But if I right click and I do transform lowercase, now everything's lowercase. All right, if I right click and I can do uppercase, now everything's uppercase. All right, so I'm just going to delete these. I don't really need that. So right click. Another useful data transformation that you might have to use, we'll for this example, we'll use doc ID. So as you can see here, we have a hyphen, right, in this column. All right. What if I want to split this column at the hyphen, at the hyphen? So it'd be one. So I'll have 2 columns, one that says here purchase order, the other one that says P0 or PO0001. I can right click and go to split column by delimiter, space, and that's the default. I'm going to change that to, let's see, we do custom. And I'm going to put in hyphen here. That's what I want to split it by. Now you have an option here. You can choose the leftmost delimiter, the rightmost delimiter, or each occurrence of the delimiter. In this case, it really doesn't matter because only one hyphen appears in each case. I'm still going to choose leftmost delimiter just for safety's sake, and I'll click OK. And we see that gets split apart. So now I have my 2 columns instead of 1. All right, I'm going to undo that. Undo this here. All right, another useful transformation you might have to do. Let's see, if we click on the top corner here, you have keep top rows, keep bottom rows, keep range of rows. This is not something you should commonly have to use, but I've used it several times in the past, so I think it's worth demoing here, letting you know that it is available. But I mean, a lot of people may overlook this little corner here, but if you click on that, you have all these different transformations that you can do. So let's say I do keep top rows. How many top rows do I want to keep? Maybe top 10. All right, so I click OK. Now I only have top 10 rows in this data, right? Let me undo that. So again, you're seeing that you can do a lot of data transformations in the query editor. And this is actually going to be a large portion of the data process, right? You want to get your data clean. You want to get it positioned in a way that you can visualize, right? You want it properly formatted, proper data types. All that is very foundational for accurately analyzing your data and accurately portraying it in data visualization. So you want to spend a good amount of time making sure your data is exactly how you want it or how your end users want it. All right. Again, up here, you can see, look, we have split column here, right? So I can just right click, or I can just highlight a column here, and I can do split column this way, right? Instead of right clicking. So you have different approaches you can do it. You can do grouping of the data, group by a particular column. Change your data type, right? You can change it up here, or you can just right click and choose change type and choose the data type. Or what I like to do is, you see here ABC. That's a numeric, or not a numerical, it's a text data type. So if I click that, so I see here text, I can change that, right? Now text is what makes sense here, so I'm not gonna change that. But if I scroll over here, let's see if we can find. Let's see. Okay, so these data types. So these came in, as you can see here, when modified, AU when created. These are date fields. They came in as date time, but they were changed to date. So I'm just gonna delete this change type here, right? And then I'm just gonna, in order to navigate to them easily, I'm gonna do this. All right, when created. All right, here we go. AU when created, when modified. So you see, here's the date time symbol. So we have date and then the time. Now, it's typically a good idea, if you have dates coming in as date time, to transform them to simply be date. All right. Now, unless you really need the time, if you're going to actually utilize the time aspect for reporting purposes, then you obviously want to keep it as date time. But in my experience, typically you don't need the time details. You just need the date details. And so there's a keyword to keep in mind when you're working with data and data transformation, and that's cardinality. So data cardinality. So you want to reduce cardinality as much as possible. Basically, cardinality refers to the number of unique occurrences in the data in a column. So in this column, because we have date and time, we're going to have high cardinality. All right, because for example, here 4/28/2020, and the time is 11:40:08 p.m. Well, here we have 4/28/2020, and here we have 11:40:19 p.m. So these are unique values, right? But if I get rid of the time aspect, now they're not distinct, right? They're the same date, right? So if you have a lot of different unique values in a column, that's called high cardinality, and that's going to increase the file size. It's going to slow down the processing of the data when it refreshes. So you want to reduce that cardinality. So over here you see we have converted, pending, converted, and so on. We have a lot of pending here. So this state, if I click on this drop down, load more. Look, this is low cardinality. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Only 6 unique categories or unique values. Only 6. That's low cardinality. All right, if I click on this drop down, well, already without loading more, I mean, look at this. I have a ton of different values here. That's high cardinality. All right. So just kind of visualize it, make it very clear what high and low cardinality are. So you want to reduce cardinality as much as possible. All right, so I can click on this and say date. All right, and now I have got rid of the time values. Now I have just the dates. I can do the same thing for this one, date. All right, so that's a really good data transformation to incorporate in your data model. All right, and then the final thing here on the home ribbon, you see over here we have merge queries and append queries. And the images here, if you can see those, is kind of tiny. It gives you a hint as to what the differences are. So merging queries, let's say you have two tables and there's one column in one table that you want brought over into the other table. Well, as long as you have a column in both of those tables that relates them, so some ID column that relates those tables, you can merge those tables, or you don't have to merge the tables in their entirety. You can just merge that one column from one table into the other table. And then append queries is exactly like it says. So is you're stacking, right? You're not merging, you're stacking. So if you want to stack data, stack tables, obviously the columns all have to be the same here. Append is used less frequently than merge. Merge is more frequent, but even merge, in my experience, is not very common. Now data transformations like this, merging and appending, if possible, is best done in the data source itself. All right, so yes, you have a lot of data transformation options in the query editor, right? As we saw already, there's a lot you can do, but that doesn't mean you should do all of those data transformations, right? It doesn't mean you should just go crazy and do all kinds of data transformations. If you're finding yourself having to do a lot of data transformations and really complex data transformations, it might be worth thinking about ways that some of those, not all of those, but some of those can be done in the data source itself. And maybe that's as simple as creating a new view in a SQL database that does a lot of those transformations for you, and then you bring that data in. All right, so that's going to help the performance of your data model. All right, and then we'll go to transform here. All right, well, we already saw some of these are the same. We have split column, you have different formatting you can do. We saw a bit of that. Let's look at date here. So I have when created here. If I click on that, I highlight that column. And let's say I want the year. I want to create a column that is the year of the when created column. So we should have 2018, 2019, and so on. So if I click date here and year, it's going to did not extract. Oh, okay. Yes, I see what went on. Okay, so I transformed it. Why? Because I'm in transform. So this is not what I wanted. I did not want when created to become a year column, right? I want to create a new column with year. So if I exit out that, I'll go back. If I go to add column, there we go. Here we have date, year, and now it added the column. So a little mix up there. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. The difference between transform and add column, right? So in transform, you're transforming the existing column. With adding column, you're adding a new column. So let's go back to transform here. All right, and a useful one, replace values. This is a really helpful one. So if I click on this, you can replace values, replace errors. Let's find a good example here. Let's say we have, United States. Well, maybe I don't want it to say United States. Maybe I want it to say US, okay? So I can click on this, and I can do replace values here, right? Or I can just right click and go to replace values. All right, what do I want to find, right? What am I wanting to replace? I want to replace United States with what? With US. All right, I'll click OK. And here we see, there we go. It's all US now instead of United States. So that's a very helpful data transformation. So maybe there's, well, actually here, let me demonstrate this. So if we go back to our column with the hyphen, so here we have a hyphen. What if I don't want the hyphen and I just want a blank space there? Well, I can right click, replace values, replace the hyphen with a space. And I click OK. And there we go. I get rid of that hyphen. I don't want it for whatever reason. I don't want it there. I just want a space. That's the easy way to do that transformation. Now, again, if you're doing this replace values data transformation in a column that has high cardinality, that could affect the performance of your data model, right? So you just want to be aware of the kinds of data transformations you're doing and thinking through, okay, is this, how necessary is this data transformation? How might this data transformation speed up or slow down my data model? When it refreshes, how might it increase or decrease the file size, right? So if I'm doing a data transformation that is, again, reducing cardinality, well, that's going to improve the performance, right? It's going to reduce the file size. Right. But if I'm doing data transformations that are more complex in nature, that are really like adding things rather than taking away things, well, that's going to increase the file size and over time slow down the performance of the file. So that's a good thing to, as you do your data transformations and then to run tests, right? Refresh your data, look at the file size. How is it looking? Is it too large? Is it good? If too large, what can I do to reduce that size? All right. So again, you can move columns. Typically, I don't think that's a good practice to do. I really don't see the need to move columns in your data. There's really not a lot of value to it. And again, that's just going to be something to slow down the process. You can right click and let's see, if not right click, if I click on the arrow, so I can sort, right? Sort descending. We're going to see that sort. So I can sort the data that way. Again, that gets added as a step, right? Any data transformation gets added as a step here, right? Well, how important is it for me to sort the data by this column? Is it really that important? If not, I don't want to do it, right? Because I'm just adding a step, and that's gonna, over time slow down the performance of the file. So I'll just remove that. All right, you can pivot, you can unpivot. So pivot columns, unpivot columns. So you can turn a column into, or you can turn values in a column into a row, right? Or into column headers, or you can take column headers and bring them into a single column, right? That's pivoting and unpivoting the data. So a lot of different data transformations that can be done. Let's see, you can extract values. You can, if we go to add column. So the column from examples is really, really helpful. And let's just to demonstrate this, let's remove that. We'll remove this. All right, so let's say, let's go back to US here. Let's see. All right, so we have United States here. Again, now we have US here, so I really don't need to do this, but just for the sake of demonstration, I can do column from examples, all right? And I can start typing here, I want US. and it's just gonna determine, it's gonna infer basically what I'm doing. It's seeing that I'm wanting to take this column, United States, and change that to US, and it's gonna do that. All right, we can play around with some different options here. Let's see. What if in this column, I want these initial numbers, I don't want anything after that. So I can click on column from examples, right? And do 120, hit enter, and you see it already sees what I'm doing here. 101, 120. So I'm just seeing, okay, is it doing everything? Is it grabbing all the numbers properly like I want? I just kind of look at some examples and say, okay, yeah, it looks like it's getting it. And okay, here, no, that's right, 2500. Okay, yeah, 2500. Yep, it's grabbing the numbers I want. So I click OK. Now I have this new column with just these numbers. So as you can tell, we're doing different kinds of data transformations very easily with column from examples. So column from examples is especially useful if there isn't an obvious way to do the data transformation that you're trying to do. Now, in the case of, turning United States into US, that's a pretty easy one to do. We don't need to use column from examples for that. In the case of just grabbing these numerical values at the front, I could just split the column, right? And you split the column to get it that way. Or maybe you want to keep the original column, and then you can do it this way. So again, just kind of think about the end result. What are you trying to do? And if it's something that seems very difficult, you're not sure how to do it with the existing transformations up here in the ribbon, then column from examples is a really helpful one to do. All right, and then custom. I'm not going to go really in depth in custom here, but if I click on custom column, so I would give my column a name, and then let's say I want to grab the text before delimiter. Well, actually, here, let me do a brackets there so it'll grab it. Text before. All right, it's not finding it. So let me spell it out. Text before delimiter, and then I want to do +1. That probably won't work because this is a text value. So I click OK. We get an error, right? And if I click here, but this is good. This is good practice to see, because you're undoubtedly gonna get errors when you do data transformations as you're learning. It says we cannot apply operator plus to types text and number. That's because this is a text. Okay, well, easy. I can just change this to where is it? Whole number. Okay. Well, it didn't change. I saw this error. Why is that? Well, because I'm changing the data type from text to numerical after the add custom step, right? So if I move this up here though, and then now click on add custom, now we're in business, right? Now it's doing the proper calculation, 120 plus 1, right? Again, this is just for demonstration. There's really no reason why you would do something like that probably, but just showing how you can use custom columns. So you can concatenate columns. You can transform data types with custom columns to create different columns. Let's say I wanted to, so a common one where you might use a custom column is where you grab, well, let's use period here. And we don't, let's see. Okay, well, usually a good example is if you have a calendar table with month names and you have the full month name like January, and you just want the first 3 letters, right? JAM. Custom column is really helpful for something like that. I'll demo that with reference to the period CD. So let's say I just want to grab the 2015 here. So the first four numbers here, first four values. I go to custom column. I can just say period CD year. All right. And when I start typing, so I do text, you see it gives me all these options, right? You can do text, string, you just type things and look, what am I trying to get? Left. So start. So if you're unsure, right? So look here, text.start, that's what I want. Text.start. Open parentheses. And now I'm going to input the column that I'm referencing. In this case, it's period CD. You see it picks it up there. Hit tab and comma. Okay, so how many places starting on the left do I want to go? And it's 4, right? 4 places to grab the year. Click OK. Here I see grab the first 4 values. Now I have the year. All right, so again, as you saw there, and just typing out those words, there's a lot of different functions that you can use. And if you're looking for something specific, you can just go on Google and do M functions. That's referred to as M, as in the letter M. And you can search up information about the different functions and the type of function that you're looking for to perform the transformation that you're wanting to perform. All right, let's see. So we've looked at a lot here. I think we've actually covered pretty much most of the data, at least the most relevant data transformations. So you can see there's a lot of data transformations that can be done. Okay, let's quickly move over here to applied steps. We've already looked a bit at that. Let me click on, let's see, one that has more steps. Okay, so any transformation that you make is going to be stored here as a step. And so this is a great way to just kind of walk through and see the different data transformations. And as you saw, you can click and drag to move it in a different place if you need to. You can right click and rename a step. This way it's obvious. Year from period CD. Right? So that actually wasn't in this table, but that's okay. Just demoing here. So you can right click and just title it whatever that data transformation was to make it very clear. Typically, you might rename a step in the case of adding a custom column, right? Because I don't really need to rename change type, right? I don't need to rename that. Inserted text before delimiter, don't really need to rename that. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But I don't want just custom, added column. I want to know what is that column that was added, right? So I would maybe input there, rename that to the name of the column. Speaking of name of columns, you can change column names simply by double clicking them. Right? I can do created from. Hit enter, and there we go. We have our name change, and of course that step got added here. Now, another important thing to remember is what is known as query folding. So query folding is basically data transformations that Power BI will essentially perform in the data source, right? So it'll fold those transformations in the data source itself, which helps with performance. So if I right click on one of these steps and I see view native query, if that's grayed out, that means it's not performing query folding, right? It's not performing query folding. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? It can't query fold everything. Some common things that can be query folded are things like filtering rows or selecting or removing columns, renaming columns, changing data types as long as they're simple data casts and nothing too complex. Those are some common things that can be query folded back into the data source. So let's see if we can find, here we go, in this first one here, view native query, right? So that means this is being query folded which is going to improve the performance. So you want to go as many steps as you can where view native query is not grayed out, because that means query folding is taking place. Right? So if you can get a lot of steps where query folding is taking place, that's going to be better for the performance of the file. All right, so if we click here, it's still doing it there. Click here. All right, it stops doing it at that step. All right, so that's just another thing to keep in mind. And I think that wraps us up here for our walkthrough in the query editor.
For more information on working with Roghnu and exploring how the data portal can help you get the most out of Sage Intacct alongside your other critical business data, scan the code on the screen or click in the link in the description.